Hello and welcome. Today we have the wonderful Marie Guerlain with us, who's a qualified functional medicine practitioner. And one of her main focuses of her studies has been the link between environmental toxins and infertility, which we're going to delve into today. But welcome, Marie, firstly.
Thank you very much for having me.
Wonderful to have you on. Thank you. Firstly, I would think I'd just love to know a little bit about yourself, how you got into what you do, and yeah, just a little bit about what you do. It would be great.
So I've been studying health for many, many years, and it's been an area of interest for me for about 20 years. And especially when I had my first child, I really started to think about giving him the most healthy beginning to his life. And that's when I started to look into environmental toxins. And this was about 16 years ago now. And back then, people weren't talking about it as much as now. But I really was very surprised at the amount of chemicals that were already in our environment and that we're being exposed to daily. And since then, I've pursued studies and qualified as a functional medicine practitioner and went into clinic. And through my practice, I've realized that actually a lot of people that come and see me have been exposed to a lot, because we all are, and needed to go through a detoxification process. And that's how we would get them better. Obviously, every case is unique, and we're all bio-individuals, so it's a different process with everyone. But environmental toxins does seem to be having a huge impact on our health now. So
yeah. Wow,
yeah.
that's great, and also so interesting. I think people are so unaware of some of the chemicals I think they're exposed to. So I guess it'd be great to know a little bit more about what that exposure looks like currently, or is the set to look like.
Well, now we are exposed to a huge amount of chemicals. We're talking in the thousands. And this is really through many different sources. We're exposed to pesticides and herbicides, different types of plastics, benzene, chemicals in our home through the cleaning products we're using, or flame retardants that are sprayed on a lot of our furnishings, etc., etc. And this all accumulates. And unfortunately, because we're exposed to such a high level, our bodies are starting to struggle. And because chronic disease is on the rise dramatically, science is pointing towards the fact that there is a strong correlation between the two. So it's really about the accumulation. That is the big issue, because often a lot of people will say, well, it's the poison is in the dose. Which is true. You could be exposed minimally via one source, but the problem is we're exposed through so many different sources now that we're inundated. And then it boils down to the individual. So in terms of their genetics, in terms of how healthy they are to begin with, whether they're able to detoxify properly or not. So there's a lot of factors at play. But we are starting to see chronic disease is very much influenced from our environment and lifestyle.
Wow, that's crazy. I think you mentioned chronic disease. What kind of other impacts are these environmental toxins having? Because I know you specialize in infertility as well and work a lot on that. So it'd be great to hear about the effects of that.
Well, infertility is one, but we're talking everything. We're talking from cancer to type 2 diabetes to cardiovascular health to allergies, autoimmunity. So all of these conditions are on the rise. And, we mustn't forget that we're exposed to, I'll just go through a couple of statistics with you, but 350,000 chemicals are now found globally, which didn't exist 100 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
Recently, in a recent study, 206 chemicals were found in umbilical cords that were never seen before. Some of them have never been seen before. So we are exposed to a lot. So to me, it's not a surprise that this would have an effect on our health.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, those statistics are crazy. And I think, yeah, it can be overwhelming. But where do you think these sources are? Where are these main sources of these environmental toxins? So where are we looking at where they're coming from?
A lot of them are coming from plastics. So that's in everything now. So we're exposed to plastic every day in our homes. If you're drinking from a plastic bottled water, you're exposed to that every day. And then we have chemicals that are sprayed on our clothes. So that's being absorbed as well. Then we are exposed to chemicals in our home that are being sprayed on everything as well. So that's already a lot. Then you've got all of these chemicals are then absorbed back into the environment that are then in our foods. So there's a vicious cycle going on. And then you've got pesticides, herbicides, etc. And then you've got environmental pollutants in the air as well. Fossil fuels, benzene, the list is extensive. So I think instead of listing all of them now, which would take a long time, it's important to realize that they are everywhere. But what I really want people to take away today is that there are things we can do to minimize our exposure, because we can't control what we're exposed to outside, but we can do something about how much we're exposed to in our own home.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely the key takeaway we want to give listeners to the podcast today. I think what are some of the ways in which we can reduce this exposure, because it appears like it's from everywhere then.
It is from everywhere, but there are things you can make a difference today. You can change certain things. And also I think it's really important that people really understand that they are their best doctor. So they need to listen to their bodies. And if they're not feeling well, or if something doesn't feel right, then they have to be a little bit of a detective and look into what's happening, for example, because becoming chronically ill or depending on medications is not really the answer. You want to be able to be in control of your own health and go to the root cause of what's causing your symptoms in the first place. Let's say you're suffering from eczema. Yes, you can take medication for that, but it would be really interesting to find out what the root cause is in the first place, eliminate the trigger, and hopefully you'll get to a good health, or minimum eczema. And that's how we work as functional medicine practitioners. We go to the root cause. So we often look at people's environments and lifestyles and look at eliminating the possible triggers, and often their symptoms get better. And that's the beauty of becoming in control of your own health. You don't want to be reliant on medications or being unwell, because life is about living and enjoying your life and not being restricted, not being able to do things, i.e. exercise or socializing, etc., is not a way to live. So it's about being a detective in your own home to start off with. Look at the things that you're using, especially plastics. So definitely look at taking plastics out. And even if you need to do that gradually, start working on that today. So I'm talking about all plastic containers, plastic dishes. Don't ever use a plastic container in the microwave, for example. That's really bad for your health, because you're exposing yourself to a real leach of plastics into your food that then you're eating. Look at it's in everything. It's the the shampoos you use are in plastic bottles. Everything is in plastic bottles. So you have to look at minimizing all of that. also look at filtering your water if you can as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's important.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really good that you say, instead of addressing the symptoms, really going to the root cause and addressing that is much better approach, I think, to healthcare. I think it's definitely something that we should be moving towards as a society as a whole. So you mentioned a few of like the normal triggers. So you're saying plastics is one. What other things perhaps in the home that someone could, who's listening to this today, perhaps change straight away? So you mentioned trying to eradicate plastic and exchange
plastic is a
other
big
things.
one. Yeah, plastic's a big one, and you can start doing that today. You can also start looking at the cleaning products that you're using. A lot of them have a huge amount of chemicals in them, and really you can make your own cleaning product, or you can buy an eco brand, which is a little bit better, but you can make your own with bicarbonate of soda, vinegar, and part water. And you can put an essential oil in there like lavender or lemon to make it smell nice, and that works very well. I think it's really important that people don't fear bacteria. We do need exposure to bacteria as well for our gut health. And one of the things that we're seeing a lot is that people's gut health has been so impacted with the lifestyles that we're leading that this is having a detrimental effect on our health overall. So it's really important to have a robust gut flora. That's our immunity, that's our health as a whole. And then reducing environmental chemicals, and then you start to rebalance. That's when we start to see symptoms subside. And it's really the exposure that you have to minimize. So we've looked at plastics, we've looked at cleaning products, also the cookware you're using. Try to avoid non-stick cookware. That's also covered in chemicals, which are, you see, some chemicals are very difficult to detoxify from, and some have short half-life, which means you can detoxify from them more easily or more quickly. So you've got your forever chemicals, which are the ones that you find on non-stick cookware, the ones that are your flame retardants, etc., which are much more difficult to detoxify from. And then you've got your plastics, which are difficult to detoxify from, but you can do it through sweating. So that's why exercise is key. Walking and doing at least 10,000 steps a day is really, really important. But on top of that, you do want to do some kind of cardio or strength training or HIIT exercise, which induces sweating. Not only does it help build muscle mass, which is vital, especially as you get older. We are under-muscled as a society. So that is also driving chronic disease. So our muscle mass is vital. It also helps balance your blood sugar levels. So muscle is important. So you incorporate that into your weekly lifestyle. Exercise and sweating. So if you can get into a sauna, if you have the facilities nearby, or you have this available to you, then doing a sauna 3 to 5 times a week, even for certain people, is vital, because then you will start to really detoxify a lot of these toxins.
Wow, that's right. Because you kind of already started to answer my next question. Is how do people go about detoxifying? So you said sweating is one of them, whether that be in a sauna or exercise. What other methods can people start to employ to really start that detoxification pathway?
Well, the next big one is obviously your diet. So the next thing I would say, apart from reducing your plastic exposure in your home, replace things with glass, etc., and try to filter your water, reduce your non-stick products, try to reduce buying too much furniture with flame retardants on sprayed on. You can do your research. There are companies out there that don't use them. If you do have products with flame retardants, just hoover a lot, because these go into little particles and then are released into the air in your house and you're breathing that in. So hoover as much as you can and air your home as much as you can. Have all the windows open. Also, you can use house plants throughout your house, and they also detoxify your house. They're amazing, and they're not, they're not very expensive, and they're beautiful to look at, but they're also cleaning your air. So those are great things you can do in your home. And then the next big thing is obviously looking at what you're eating.
So what would you, with nutrition, what would you say is something, foods to avoid, foods to go for? What kind of recommendations would you give that the average person say? I understand it's probably different for other people, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, okay, fundamentally, one man's food is another man's poison. So I'm giving a very broad advice today because we are all bio-individual, and actually our health needs to be personalized, and that's where we're heading. That's why
definitely.
Practitioners like me, I mean, it's wonderful because you're able to give someone a very personalized protocol to follow. But overall, everyone should never really touch ultra processed foods, which is everything that's been ready-made and it's in a package that you can touch, and really gravitate more towards fresh foods. So especially your vegetables and your fruit. Fruit, you can have up to 2 pieces of fruit a day. The rest is 6 to 8 portions of vegetables a day. And the vegetables and fruit are extraordinary because they are natural detoxifiers for you. So they will clean your system out. They will support your health. They are packed full of nutrients. So, and it's really interesting because when people start to up their vegetable and fruit intake, maybe they weren't eating as much before and they were very much addicted to ultra processed foods and sugar, etc. But they find that once they get through the because for a few days it's difficult to transition, but once they get to the other side, that they are amazed at how they feel, but also how they're craving vegetables. So there's a real transformation. It's like you have to re-educate the taste buds in your mouth, and then you are sort of thinking, my God, I can't wait to have asparagus tonight. I can't wait to eat my broccoli. Your body then craves it. And that's why listening to your body is so important. And more than anyone else, whether you're not feeling right. Someone can sit in front of you and say, well, no, you're fine. I've looked at your blood tests. You look fine. But if you don't feel fine, then listen to that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really
and that's the same with any food as well. So I'm giving a very sort of broad suggestion here, but some people don't do well on certain vegetables for many different reasons. It doesn't mean that the vegetables are bad. It's just, it means that their body is struggling with that particular food. And there's so many reasons for that. It could be down to their gut health. It could be down to their detoxification pathways that are struggling, etc., etc. So that is also important. And I would say for people who maybe eat something that they think is healthy and then they have a reaction, maybe they're bloated afterwards. It can be for 2, 3, 4 days after as well. They maybe have a rash, or they're feeling tired, or a flare up, or itchy, or whatever it is, or upset stomach. Take that food out. Don't eat it for 3 to 4 weeks. Reintroduce it, and if you have the same symptom, you've got a problem with that food. That's why I'm saying being your own doctor is so important. It's really listening to your own body. So fruit and vegetables every day, and eat the rainbow, because every single color of your vegetable and fruit is giving you a different antioxidant and a different nutrient to the other one. And they're all vital to our health. So I always say, eat the rainbow. And then, whichever diet someone's on, whether it's vegan, whether it's omnivore, whether it's vegetarian, just make sure you have protein at each meal as well, just to sustain your energy. That's very important as well.
Yeah, I think balance is super key.
It's very key. And then obviously greens, if you can tolerate them, because not everyone can, because as I mentioned before, some people have reactions to different foods, but eat your greens is really true. They really do help draw out toxins, because I mean, we didn't talk about heavy metals as well. Heavy metals, we're exposed to them in different ways. The problem with heavy metals is that they lodge themselves in different areas of the body, especially the brain.
Where do these heavy metals come from? How do we get exposed to them?
Some people have mercury poisoning through amalgams in their mouth. So this is fillings.
Yeah.
And if you do have a lot of silver fillings in your mouth, then it's probably a good idea to have them removed, but with a specialist dentist.
Yeah.
Because obviously you don't want to make it worse
Yeah.
if it's removed properly. So that also needs to be looked at, but it's also, heavy metals very much in our environment. So it's just a question of, it's through pollution, etc. Yeah. So again, just eating certain foods high in chlorophyll, certain herbs like parsley and coriander are amazing at pulling these heavy metals out of the system.
And I guess that's an easier way for some people to kind of incorporate that detoxification, because as you said, yeah, eating loads of fruit and vegetables is the ideal, but sometimes it's the easier option to perhaps go for the more processed food because it's quick and easy. I don't know if you kind of had any information or any advice on people who may be struggling for time or motivation with regards to cooking a balanced meal, and wanting to be healthy, but yeah, struggling on that side of things.
So there are things you can do. You can batch cook.
Yeah.
Which I find really works for a lot of people who are really busy. So you can do some batch cooking on the weekend, and then you freeze your portions. And then you defrost them the day before. So you defrost them in the morning, and then by the time you come in the evening, it's ready for you to just heat up. That's really helpful. So you have to cook, obviously, but you need to find joy in cooking. And once you've tasted your own food, hopefully you'll never go back to the processed foods, because it doesn't taste the same. Yeah. Fresh food tastes delicious. So you can do that. You can also slow cook. So buy a slow cooker, put everything in the slow cooker in the morning, and by the time you come back in the evening, you've got a beautiful meal waiting for you. Yeah. You don't need to do anything, it's all ready. So a lot of people do that as well. Or there are lots of cookbooks out there with very, very quick and easy 15-minute meals that you can do, which don't take a lot of time. Yeah. And actually cooking can be therapeutic as well. I know it's difficult when you're tired. I've got 3 children. I know that at times I'm tired too. But once you're sitting down as a family and enjoying home cooked food, there's just nothing like it, really.
Yeah, I think it's about assessing that time for yourself, even if it is 15 minutes. I think it's that self-care that people just need to get into the habit of doing a bit more.
You can also batch cook, and you don't necessarily need to freeze it. So you can batch cook a portion of brown rice, or batch cook some quinoa, or batch cook some lentils. And they will last 3-4 days in the fridge.
Yeah.
Then you can add something quick to that, because it just needs reheating. I would suggest, though, for vegetables, it's always better to cook them fresh, because otherwise you're going to lose the nutrients. But most vegetables are quite easy to cook quite quickly. The only thing is, I would say don't boil them, because if you boil vegetables, you lose the nutrients as well.
Okay, so which method of cooking would you recommend?
Steaming is very good.
Okay.
Or you can, if you're doing a little stir fry, you can just flash fry your veggies.
Yeah.
People like them crunchy. Some people like them a bit more cooked. It's up to you. Also, make sure that you're using the right kind of oil to cook with.
Okay.
So stay away from refined oils such as canola oil, sunflower oil, etc., because those oils are processed and
Okay, yeah.
are not good for the health. They actually induce inflammation. So if you're going to cook, you're better off with a little bit of grass-fed butter. Ghee is very good as well. Coconut oil, avocado oil, something like that. I know avocado oil is a little bit more expensive, but try and look at those types of cooking oils, or some people even use water. They just put a little bit of water, and not for protein, but for vegetables. And they just cook shallow cook it. But I prefer not putting any water because you're just going to draw things out.
Yeah, okay. No, that's really interesting. I think it is just a case of re-looking at everything we put into our bodies, because I think we sometimes forget that the things we're putting into our bodies obviously is going to have an impact on how we're feeling and how we perform as well. I think perhaps going back to the processed food point, because I think some people may have a ready meal, for example, and they may see a couple veg on it, a bit of protein, and say that's fine because it's got what you've kind of said. What would you say to these people and with regards to those kind of meals?
Well, remember the quality of the ingredients won't be very good, and the added ingredients inside to keep it fresh, you have to add ingredients in there, and a lot of the ingredients are not good for you. They're added chemicals, they're flavorings, they're preservatives, they're you name it. There's everything in there to try and keep that food fresh to sit on the shelf for longer. So you don't really want all of that in your body.
Definitely.
And then they're going to use the wrong type of ingredients, which will then cause an inflammatory cascade in your body. Thing is, we're all quite inflamed because of our environment and our lifestyles. We're living with a lot of stress. We're living with a lot of external factors that we were not exposed to 100 years ago. So our bodies are inflamed and are, struggling a little bit. So we have to give our bodies every tool possible to make them healthy. And it doesn't mean that our bodies are not capable of doing these things. Of course, our bodies are incredible. They are fighting every single day to keep us alive and to keep us well, but they're just inundated. So it's just a question of lightening the toxin load and allowing our bodies to do what they need to do to keep us healthy. And also, we must factor in how much water we're drinking, and that needs to be filtered. And how much alcohol we're drinking. I don't mean to be a party pooper, but alcohol is not good for us. So, and latest studies have shown that alcohol is worse than we even thought it was. So if you're going to drink, then give yourself at least 3 to 4 days in between. Try not to drink every single day, because you're not allowing your body the time to detoxify properly and regenerate. You're giving your body that extra stress on top of everything else.
Yeah, and I think there's increasingly a movement towards alcohol alternatives as well. So I think perhaps that may be where we're moving towards slightly.
No, you're completely right. I just actually saw a study this morning which was saying that actually a lot of people are drinking a lot less now, and the millennials, the younger generations, are actually steering away from alcohol and cigarettes. Unfortunately, vaping has now come in, which is just as bad, if not worse, than cigarettes.
With the microplastics.
So unfortunately, that's not great, and that needs to go because it's not good for people. But people, I think, are starting to become more aware about their health, and we need to make the choices for ourselves. We are inundated with choice on the shelves. most of these packaged foods are too high in refined salts and sugars. Sugar is in everything, and sugar is inflammatory. So it's not good for us. So I'm not saying don't have a piece of cake or don't go out for dinner, or of course we're all human. We all want to have a good life and a fun time, but it's just about being conscious and looking after yourself more.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even just as you mentioned, just trying to employ perhaps one of the things that you've provided so many solutions and so many different substitutions that people can kind of pick and choose certain ones and really start there. And it's not about doing it all at once and completely changing your lifestyle all at once. But I think you've included some really great, easy ways in which people can start to detoxify and start to reduce that load of chemicals that they're exposing themselves to. So I think that's really great.
Good.
And I guess with that, I think, you provided loads of solutions, but is there any other last points that you perhaps want to bring up? Anything else you would like to mention before we finish today?
I think it's really important that people look at their health as a whole. Because our bodies are so incredibly intelligent, and there are so many different bodily systems that are working all together. So your liver is not independent to the rest of your body. The same with your brain, everything is working together. So when people experience something like chronic disease, it just means that something somewhere has gone a little wrong, and then it's caused a sort of a cascade effect throughout the body. That's why it's so important when we see patients is we look at them as a whole, and we try and understand everything that's going on with them. We don't look at one issue in isolation. That's why our lifestyle, I keep coming back to the lifestyle, is so important, because it's influencing our health. And there's a saying in functional medicine practitioner world that our genetics loads the gun, but our environment pulls the trigger. And I don't really like that expression. I wish it was something else than a gun that we're talking about. but you see where I'm coming at, is that we've got our own unique DNA blueprint. And yes, we could be prone to certain cancers or high blood pressure or cardiovascular disease. Okay, we've all got these genetic variations that makes us susceptible to these things. However, our environment and lifestyle is very much inducing this in us. So what I'm saying is, if you look after your lifestyle and you make these changes, you're reducing your susceptibility to these things. And that's including everything that we do. It's looking at our sleep, it's looking at the amount of exercise we do and the amount of movement we do throughout the day. So if you're sitting at a desk, make sure that you're getting up at least every hour and moving around. This is vital to your health. Getting outside, getting fresh air, walking in nature. I mean, studies have shown that you walk in nature, and incredibly, this actually boosts your immune system. So we're very much in unison with nature, but we've lost that connection a little bit. So we, because it's almost natural, isn't it? A lot of us say, oh, I really want to go outside. I really need some fresh air. I really want to sit in the sun. That's just your body telling you what it needs. Relaxation as well is very important. Whether you do meditation, yoga, mindfulness, whatever it is, it's really important to reduce your stress levels. That has a lot to do with everything as well.
And I think, a core part of what you've been saying is just listening to your own body. And I think that's something that hopefully we're starting to move towards as people start to focus on their health a bit more. But I think what your work is, super interesting, and all about actually listening to what your body's screaming at you sometimes to say, and what you can do. And I think you provided some really great solutions and substitutions that people can get. And also I encourage people to get in touch with you. I'll attach all your socials if they want further advice, because I feel like it's an area in which there's so much more that people can learn and do, and just make easy changes to really transform the way that they're feeling.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's a huge topic, and we could talk about so many different things today. But it's again, I'll go back to what I was saying before. It's about doing lots of little changes in your life that can make a dramatic difference. So sleeping well, exercising, reducing toxins in your home, reducing your stress will already make you feel a lot better. And if you've got symptoms that are troubling you, then you can do your research and look into it. If you don't want to take medication for it and you really want to understand what is causing this, be a detective and look into it more deeply, because you'd be surprised at how you can make yourself better just by making a few changes.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's super great. And with that, I think that will draw us to the end of the podcast. But thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was lovely. Thank you.